So, Mr. Speaker, I want to contextualize this by first indicating that the magistrates' court, or what sometimes people call the inferior courts, is a creature of statute. And what that means is that the magistrates' court are in fact created by legislation from the Houses of Parliament. And therefore, Parliament has the power to increase or decrease the authority, functions, and the role and the jurisdiction of magistrates. I want to repeat that. Magistrates are creatures of statute. They are created by legislation coming out of this House. So there's a Magistrates Act which sets out the jurisdiction of magistrates, both in civil and in criminal matters. And therefore, whether or not a magistrate has the power to admit someone to bail or not is a matter that this House is entitled, as of law, to treat with. The High Court, or the Supreme Court, is a court of original jurisdiction, and in that sense stands in a place of superiority to that of the Magistrates' Court, and can exercise supervisory and appellate jurisdiction in some instances over the Magistrates' Court. The Supreme Court is created by our Constitution, and therefore when we make reference to the judiciary, and specifically the Supreme Court, Parliament is far more limited and restricted in its ability to limit the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. And I've given this preamble to indicate that the amendment to the Criminal Procedure Code is not in any way, shape, or form addressing the powers of the Supreme Court. And therefore, the Supreme Court has the right, as this bill clearly says, to admit someone to bail, as well as to order a magistrate to admit someone to bail. That's the High Court, that's the Supreme Court. We are not touching this. What we are touching is the Magistrates' Court, an inferior court, a court created by law, ordinary legislation that emanates from this House. And so this House has the power to pass law to expand or to limit the jurisdiction of magistrates. What we are seeking to do, Mr. Speaker, is in fact, in this case, to limit the jurisdiction of the magistrates to admit to bail, to release someone on bail who has been charged with contravention of the Firearms Act, where the minimum fixed sentence is 5 years or more. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to read, with your leave, a brief article. I will leave out the name of the perpetrator, but just so that we understand the challenges of what we're doing.
Mr. Speaker, before on part of all that, to give the source of what is being read in Parliament, it's normal you circulate the articles, which will be quoted, but I'm prepared now simply to give the source, so that the source can be verified by the members. That is normal procedure of the Parliament.
I'm aware. Honourable Prime Minister, you wish to declare the source?
Rephrase what I will say, because it will have the same effect. Because the source of the article is the New Today. But even without the New Today, I have knowledge of the facts in any event in my capacity as Minister of National Security. So I can either give the facts in my capacity as Minister of National Security, or for the benefit of the members, it's the New Today article, It is volume 16, number 25. Let me just make sure I have it right. And if I may, Mr. Speaker.
You mind not referencing the newspaper? Can you proceed?
I have no difficulty. Newspapers are public documents, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. Please.
I was asked for the source, and I provided the source.
Yeah. Please proceed, Honorable. Please proceed, Honorable Prime Minister, without referencing the newspaper.
Sure.
Please proceed.
Right. So, Mr. Speaker, it says on Thursday, 23rd November 2023, officers executed a search warrant at the premises of a named person, 34 years old, self-employed. It gives the district. It led to the seizure of 5 firearms, 5, and 281 rounds of ammunition. As a result, this person was arrested and charged for the offense of possession of illegal firearms and possession of ammunition. He appeared, I will not give the district, but at the magistrate court on a fixed date and was granted bail. What is he? You think someone has 5 firearms? 5. 281 rounds of ammunition. We're in Ukraine. We're in Sudan. Afghanistan. The Gaza Strip. Mr. Speaker, members of this honorable House, this is the kind of challenge that we are facing. This is not just possession of firearm. This is the kind of trafficking and commercialization of illicit firearms that is taking place. What is the impact of that on law enforcement after this kind of work, this kind of effort at interception? Putting their lives at risk. And the day after, they're back out on the streets. Now, with the amendment, which we are optimistic will also pass in the upper house, to the Firearms Act, someone caught in such a situation will, once found guilty, be liable to a minimum sentence of at least 5 years. And we are saying in those circumstances, you should not be admitted by a magistrate to bail. They will have the right to appeal to the High Court. The judge, they will have the right, well, let me be more circumspect with my language. They will have the right to apply to the High Court for bail. The High Court will hear arguments as to whether or not bail should be granted. But we are not prepared, Mr. Speaker, to simply sit by and watch this pattern and this trend continue. In my earlier presentation, I made the point that 2 of these young men who regrettably, whose lives were cut short, were gunned down. They didn't die in a motor vehicle accident. They didn't die of natural causes. They were gunned down. They were executed in public places, frequented by members of the public, where members of the public could also have been at risk. They had 21 and 26 antecedents or convictions. spanning 12 and 19 years respectively. So the state, frankly, the state's first priority, the very reason for the existence of states, is to try and ensure that there's public safety and public order as much as possible. That is, to a large extent, why people organize themselves into nation states. And so, Mr. Speaker, it is likely that people will raise concerns about the fundamental freedoms of citizens and the right not to be deprived of your liberty except by due process. And there is due process. Your right to appeal to the High Court, should you run afoul, to apply to the High Court, should you run afoul of the legislation in circumstances where the minimum sentence is 5 years, is not in any way hindered. But the right of innocent citizens in particular, not to have their lives and their limbs at risk as a result of illegal use and possession of firearm and ammunition, Mr. Speaker, when balancing the scale, must trump the right of criminals to have in possession and to use illegal firearms. And so this amendment, Mr. Speaker, is meant to reinforce our approach to a zero to low tolerance for the use, possession, trafficking in illegal firearms. And I want to re-emphasize that the statistics throughout the region, from the Bahamas in the north to Trinidad and Guyana in the south, shows repeatedly that oftentimes the multiple homicides are carried out by criminals who are on bail. And we have to use whatever tool is available to us to minimize, in the context of Grenada, the risk to public safety by allowing persons who are caught with illicit firearms to be allowed to easily go back into the streets and repeat the crime and the perpetration of the crime. And I want to make the point, when the Honorable MP for P.T. Market and Carriacou talked about people preying on the poor and vulnerable, that there are instances when a young man, misguided, from poor backgrounds, would feel attracted to a firearm and may genuinely run afoul of the law once. He's not a criminal, etc., etc. And that we need to give persons like this every opportunity to ensure that they get an opportunity to, in fact, reform and rehabilitate. And that opportunity is there because they can apply to the High Court, or judicial officers. The High Court judges are serious, sober, well-experienced judges who would have the ability to hear arguments from the prosecution, arguments from the defense counsel. In fact, sometimes the prosecutor, after reviewing the file, may very well say, based on the fact that the young man is mistaken, no antecedents, they're satisfied that this was a mistake, they may say, we're not even objecting to bail. But I also want us to appreciate, Mr. Speaker, that there is significant trafficking in firearms. And that because of Grenada and the Caribbean's geostrategic location, that we are subject to a number of things. There's guns for food trafficking. There's guns for food trafficking. There's guns for US trafficking. So, for example, in the context of Venezuela, as you are aware, there are sanctions and embargoes. There are persons who are trafficking in firearms from South America in exchange for US, in exchange for food. There's a situation in Haiti where people are trafficking firearms in exchange for guns, in exchange for food. There's human trafficking taking place, backed up by the use of illicit and illegal firearms. There is sadly and regrettably a situation where in recent times it has been highlighted that within the context of the Caribbean, that persons of Caribbean descent born into the United States have been engaging in the trafficking of firearms in the context of the Caribbean. And, Mr. Speaker, this is something that has been flagged at a regional level in several reports, and I want to, since I've been asked to give the source of stuff, I will seek to make reference to a November 2023 publication by a number of regional bodies, including CARICOM Impacts. And, Mr. Speaker, I will simply give a quick summary of some of the things. The proliferation of illicit firearms, ammunition, parts, and components has been prevalent across CARICOM and the wider Caribbean in recent years. Given the region's porous borders and its strategic location as a key transshipment point. And so, gun violence in the Caribbean is often associated with the intertwined factors of gang violence, drug trafficking, and access to illicit firearms. The recently completed Caribbean firearms study noted firearms as the weapon of choice in approximately 80% of homicides in CARICOM. In layman's terms, it means the vast majority of murders within CARICOM are conducted by the use of firearms, with illegal firearms as a primary tool used in serious crimes and gang-related criminal activities. There has been a noticeable increase in the use of high-powered weapons. High-powered weapons. It has led to a subsequent increase in multiple murder events. We had St. Lucia, 17 people were killed in one day. Last year, the Royal Grenada Police Force had to send officers from Grenada to assist our colleagues under the RSS in St. Lucia. This isn't, there's a lot of comic relief that was taking place here this morning. This isn't a joke, Mr. Speaker. This is life and death. And when I made the reference to the fact that sometimes they are safer off, Mr. Speaker, I think the rules does permit you the discretion to give members an extra 5 minutes. And I would, in those circumstances, seek your indulgence and your discretion for 3 out of the 5 minutes.
Granted, Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the Speaker is fair, Honourable Member for the Town of St. George, and if you so request, 5 minutes, he will give you 5.
Well,
You know. I've been doing so a long time, but if you're listening, you're listening at all. As you saw this morning, you're listening. But as they say, time will tell. So, Mr. Speaker, the empirical data is there. And I want to read this. Furthermore, analysis of firearms purchasers' data highlights the increasing and deeply concerning tendency for Caribbean-born persons legally residing in the U.S. to purchase firearms, which are then shipped to and recovered in the Caribbean. Within the purchaser data on crime guns traced and recovered, 14% of purchasers were born in the Caribbean, denoting a budding relationship between Caribbean-born purchasers and crime guns recovered in the Caribbean. 61.3% of the firearms recovered in the purchaser's birth country and 38.7% recovered in a nearby Caribbean island. What does that tell you? 38.7% recovered in a nearby Caribbean island. It means the guns would have been shipped to Grenada, and if they ship 4 or 5, 2 have been found in St. Vincent. 2 have been found in St. Lucia. Let us not be naive. We are not just dealing with an isolated case of a young man watching some movie or listening to music or being led astray. You have those isolated incidents. But we also have to appreciate that criminals within CARICOM are moving, they are trading, and they are doing business just as legitimate business people. But it's drug running, money laundering, or murder for hire. And I want to conclude on this point, Mr. Speaker. We have had to deport several CARICOM nationals from Jamaica in the north, to Trinidad in the south, to St. Vincent not so far, who've entered this island, and who have multiple, in many instances, convictions for shooting at the police in the case of Trinidad, murder charges, multiple, in Jamaica and Trinidad. So we have to understand, they call them shooters in Trinidad, murder for hire. You pay them, they kill you. Just business. So I'm saying, if we find such persons here, Mr. Speaker, just recently, the police arrested a Vincentian national. Firearms, drugs. He was fined 30,000 or something like that. Paid the 30,000 on the spot, went to St. Vincent. You think he...
Right, so folks, we were listening to the most honorable Deacon Mitchell there, our beloved Prime Minister, presenting on this particular gun amendment bill, this bill that speaks to firearms. So firearms amendment bill at the Parliament today. And it was a very serious Parliament sitting, because in the last couple weeks and months, Grenada saw an increase in gun violence, where 3 young men were more or less, gunned down. It came across as though, straight in the head, bang on target. It was scary for a lot of people. The police confiscated a number of illegal firearms too, quite a number. And we have heard of so many gunshots in different locations and so on. But the police, they've arrested that problem so far. They have done an excellent job so far. And the government promised to be tough where gun violence is concerned, where illegal firearms are concerned. So they took a very important bill to Parliament today. A very, very important bill. And do you know that Keith Mitchell left the Parliament even before all the serious debates and so on, stating that he was going to some graduation, and people started thinking deeper. Is a graduation more important than dealing with the people's business in the Parliament? But he's accustomed to exiting, leaving the Parliament more or less before time, before it concludes. So it's not surprising. He comes across as a very disrespectful person because he been there for so long, as he would say. He's the grandpa in the Parliament. He will boast of that. He's the senior in the Parliament. He's been there for 40 years or so. And the level of disrespect, the level of insult, more or less, to that high office. I mean, let me just play a little piece of where he was exiting.
Part of the development of what takes place in your country and the solving, well, my Lord of mercy.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Yeah, listen, Mr. Speaker, I realize I've touched enough horns here this morning, and therefore I would not want to create, some people might have heart attack before I continue here. So because of this, Mr. Speaker, I'll save you and the House of any serious illness that might take place here today. But I just want to say this before I leave, Mr. Speaker. I have to leave. I'm patron to a major graduation. In fact, I think it was a terrible time to have a Parliament session because most people, members are absent here today because of serious graduation ceremony. So I leave. I hope to come back because I told them I just passed for.
Look at Paris Modest. She holding her head. Just watching this man with his nonsense and his bad conduct in the Parliament. Clarice Modest is holding her head and she whispers something to Peter David next door there. It's sickening. Every time this guy has to leave. And look, a graduation is more important than debating and dealing with the people's business regarding illegal firearms. I mean, it's I don't know, boy.
And come back. Hopefully, the Parliament will still continue. I'll be back to do my responsibility. But I will save the members heart attack, Mr. Speaker. And I hope you're not among them, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable MP and Leader of His Majesty Opposition.
Look at this disrespect, heart attack, and save the members from getting heart attack. And I hope you, Speaker, is not a member of it. Some words like, I mean, it's just sad. It's sickening. It's a disgrace. But that is how this guy conducts himself, as though he believes that this is his little house and he can do whatever he wants. But you know what's amazing? Our beloved Prime Minister did something today that will go down in history as very, very politically smart. Very, very politically smart. He asked for a division of the House to know where those who were there on the opposition side in particular, where they were actually voting on this particular bill.
A matter of significant public importance. And I think for posterity, we ought to know the position of each member on this bill.
All right, the clerk would lead out in this regard. We will take the vote by division. Yes.
Honorable Dickon Mitchell.
I vote in favor, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Philip Tellison.
Yes.
Honorable Lennox Andrews.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Tevin Andrews.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Dennis Cornwall.
Certainly, yes.
Honorable Kieran James,
Yes, Mr. Clerk.
Honorable Ron Redhead,
I vote yes.
Honorable Delma Thomas,
Yes.
Honorable Andy Williams,
Yes.
Honorable Emmeline Pierre,
No, Mr.
Honorable Peter David, abstain. Member has to say whether he abstains or, Mr. Speaker, or whether he abstains.
You proceed.
Honorable Modest Cohen, Clarice Modest Cohen,
I abstain.
abstained.
What's the number?
We have 9 yes, 1 no, 2 abstentions. So you have to announce that. 9 yes, 2 abstentions, 1 no.
Honorable members, the vote was taken by division. You've had 9 yes, 1 no, and what I regard as 2 abstention. What I regard as 2. The ayes suddenly have it and it's passed.
Yeah, so folks, that moment is historic because our beloved Prime Minister asked for a division of the votes. He really wanted to know who in the Parliament would go against such a bill, being tough on persons with illegal firearms. Only today, we got news from Carriacou that a number of people were arrested for a number of guns found in a barrel or barrels. Only today, while they were debating this in the Parliament, only today we got word that a number of guns were confiscated by police and a number of people were arrested in connection with the guns. In fact, they have been transferred to Grenada, and maybe tomorrow they would face the judge or they would face the magistrate. I am saying, folks, this is no joking matter. And the NNP is taking this thing as a joke. They're taking it as a joke. But I always say to people, for now, it's not on their doorstep. For now, their family member or members are not affected directly. So they would not vote for this bill to get this bill passed, right, overwhelmingly with bipartisan support. They would not do that because they're playing the game. They're playing the game. And you have people out there already start thinking, boy, if these people could take such a position, people start thinking about what happened in South St. George police station when there was a lapse on the part of some police officers and the 2 criminals escaped, and we know what happened thereafter. People start thinking, right? What was really behind this? And then we heard from the opposition forces, right? And how they put it. People start thinking about those things. And now, with what's happening with the gun violence and government trying their best to get this thing under wraps, to save this country, you have the opposition forces again, the NNP opposition senators and, members of parliament. Look at their conduct. If you listen to Peter today, you wonder. If you listen to Emmeline Pierre, same thing. And Clarice Modeste and all of them, Keith Mitchell, all of them. Do they really love this country? And I think the answer is no. They're not genuine about Grenada. And I have said so on umpteen occasions. I told you based on the modus operandi, what I have witnessed over the last 2 years. They want to see Grenada on its knees. They want to see Grenada on its belly. They want to see bad things, in my belief, happen to this country so that they can just climb the back of Grenada and come right back into power. And they're showing us that every single time. Every single time. The government is trying to make it tougher, the penalties tougher, and let it serve as a deterrent for people who want to play around with illegal firearms. And here you have the opposition trying to block that, to prevent that from happening. Why? It is a high level of irresponsibility on the part of the opposition in this country. It is sickening, the conduct in Parliament and the positions that they're taking. You wonder, these same people want to come back and run Grenada, They want to come back in government, and they have all kind of rationale. What the government is simply saying, if a person, and we must note, at this point, there is a gun amnesty in place. A 90 days gun amnesty, where the government is encouraging people with illegal firearms, bring your gun in, bring your guns in. We will not jail you. We don't even need to know your name. Just bring it in. You're not going to get jailed for that. But they told you also, we're giving you the carrot, but we're also giving you the stick. We're giving you the carrot, but we're also giving you the stick. If you don't bring in your guns, the laws will be tougher. Quote unquote, there will be draconian laws, in fact. You'd wonder. And you're seeing it today. So they're trying to remove the magistrate court from granting bail. Because, it's so easy to get bail these days. But if they have to appeal to the judge, it will cost more money. And they may or may not get bail from there. They may send straight on remand. And as a result, they'll have to await trial there. And they face up to what? 20, 30, 40 years? How many years? They face a lot of years up there in jail. Don't forget that. So we must also highlight that many of those criminals caught with firearm, illegal firearm, who normally represents them? That's the question, Who normally represent them in the court? I would love to know. Just think about it. There is a certain individual on the opposition side who is often seen on television as the lawyer representing them. And I'm not saying that they don't need a representative or a lawyer. I'm not saying that. And they have a right to a lawyer. They have a right to an attorney. But you have to wonder. You have to wonder. Yeah? So I am simply saying the opposition forces, the opposition party, they are coming across as though they are aiding and abetting all of these things that we saw. And it's scary because on one side of the tongue, they preach they are for law enforcement and they're strong where law enforcement is concerned. And on the other side, here you have an opportunity to demonstrate that. to make sure that the laws are tougher. We are seeing before our very eyes. They don't care. They make it a mockery of the parliament. It is sad, very sad. But there are still people who follow these folks, who support them. And they support them because they like a man and they like this person and so on. But when it comes to substance, come on, something as important as that. We could have all our debates, all our issues and say, well, you know, they shouldn't give them 40 years, they shouldn't give them 30 years up. We could have all that discussion. But once it becomes law, you want to think twice before having an illegal firearm or firearms in your possession. You're going to think that twice. And if there are people around you who know you have that, they will report it to the police. They will even talk to you because they fear that they too will be arrested for knowing that you have it and still around you, supporting you with that illegal gun. So a lot of people are scared because they normally are around certain people who have illegal guns and they think it's a style. But now the law is saying we are arresting the person with the illegal gun or guns, and we're still arresting you who know that they had the gun or guns and did not report it to the police. So they're fearful because there are a lot of people, I tell you, they socialize, they have a certain clique, and they know one or two of the people have illegal guns. And they have no problem with that. So the law is tougher, will become tougher. So if you know a person has a illegal gun, you have to report it. Only today, they arrested a number of people in Carriacou, right, for some guns in a barrel or barrels. I think it's more than 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 guns. I think so. But it's definitely more than one. Only today. The police is doing a fantastic job. Give them that. When they mess up, we say certain things. We condemn them, we criticize them. But they're doing a fantastic job. The intelligence is on point. I want to applaud Commissioner Don McKenzie and the senior police officers and also the police officers generally. I want to applaud the police officer ASP Sylvester, I think, in Carriacou. He's doing a marvelous job in Carriacou. A wonderful job. So I want to say here, put on record that the police is working their tail out and they have improved significantly their intelligence, their ground game, their sky game and all, their drones and so on. They are mixing and mingling with ordinary people and getting intel to keep our people safe. And let's give them that. So only today, they already sent down the folks they arrested in Grenada to face trial. And mind you, I understand some public officer is involved too. I don't know if the person works in customs, on the port, or wherever. Some public servant is involved in that too. I am simply saying this piece of legislation is a very important one. But the opposition forces, they are not in support of it. They don't want the government to be tough on illegal guns. In my belief, they are okay with the crimes, the increase in crimes in this country, in my belief. But the government is doing something about it. But I've always said to people, and I repeat it on this program, I just cannot understand why the opposition forces, those pundits on their talk shows and podcasts, They'll be rejoicing when something bad happens to Grenada, you know. And I always wonder, I said, but how could you be patriotic? How could you love Grenada and be rejoicing? In fact, when the gun violence was on the increase, they were out there rejoicing on their programs, wishing that more of those bad things can befall our country. And I wondered how these people, those opposition forces and pundits and surrogates of the opposition, can be out there pushing that kind of thing. I'm telling you. And we see it every day. When good news come for Grenada, like the CBI program doing well, they criticize, they condemn, they beat up on it as though they vex Grenada is doing well. The IMF came and gave Grenada a good review, an A+ for how they're managing the economy and how things are going. They beat up on that again. But why? And you're seeing it playing out now before our very eyes. An important bill like that. Come on. You can't play politics when it comes to fighting crime. You have to be tough on those criminals and people who believe that they can just get an illegal firearm, an illegal gun, and do all kind of nasty things with it. There are some people who believe that they can just have an illegal firearm, you know. I remember I had an event at my place some years ago, and I never invited a particular individual when he died. The individual recently died by the gun. I never invited the individual to my place, but a friend brought him. And I happened to sight the illegal firearm. And I said to him, get out of my place. And I know, you know, these guys are bad boys. At the time, there was no amnesty in place. So you call the police, they may just come at you sometime down the road because you don't trust too at the time, right? Because the mere fact that in the Grenville police station, you see police officers recording things inside and leaking it out on the internet, you have to be concerned. So I use my discretion to say to the individual, get out of my gate, get out. I didn't invite you here, get out. I don't want you around my place. Say you have your gun, get out. So you have to move, right? And I mean, I don't skin teeth. People know me. He might have an illegal firearm, but you know, I am a countryman. You understand the point? And I could do gardening and so on too. But I'm simply saying all of this to say, I don't support these things. Meaning if you have an illegal fire, call the police on you. Especially now, we're calling the police. Right? But at the time, you know, when you're dealing with these kind of guys, you have to be very, you know, careful. I eventually spoke to a senior police. But I'm saying the individual died by the gun. Only recently died by the gun. Sometimes, you know, you think about these things and you have to be, you understand. But I am saying this thing is serious. This is serious business. And I want to call on the opposition to be more responsible. You are reckless. You are irresponsible. You are trying to destroy, in my belief, the peace and tranquility of this country. Grenada is a very peaceful place with loving people, with warm people. The government is trying their best to toughen up on those criminal elements when it comes to illegal guns and so on. The police is doing a fantastic job. Look at the amount of guns they've confiscated. Look at the amount of guns and the amount of arrests they have made in recent times. A lot. A lot, a lot, a lot. Sometimes we fail to give credit where credit is due. But we have to give credit where credit is due. The police, they're doing a damn good job. And they have to be commended. And that is why I am applauding them and congratulating them. The intel, and we have been talking about that. Stop and search stop and such. That's a good thing. Yeah, I understand. One had a gun, fire a shot or two. The police, they didn't make any fuss. No. When about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, they break down the door. They say good morning. By the time they say good morning, they break down the door. Mother balling, that balling, two, they found a gun in his possession. They break down the door. So there are a lot of criminals who must know that the police go break down your door and come in your house and get the gun. They're going to make your life uncomfortable. And when you're arrested with the illegal firearm, you're going in jail. There's no bail at the magistrate level. You have to go on remand. That's where you're going to be. And you have to wait. Await your trial. I don't think any politician, lawyer could come and plead and beg. The law is the law. You hear me? That is why some of them getting on. So, yeah, that's why I am simply saying the time has come for us to be more responsible. And we have to call them out, you know. Because those scumbags want to come back into power. They want to be in charge again. But look at the level of recklessness on their part and irresponsibility. It's a high level of irresponsibility. Come on, people saw today how they intend to undermine our democracy. They don't like peace. They don't like tranquility. They don't like that. And I'm happy that our beloved Prime Minister was politically on point, politically astute, wise, intelligent, smart, to call for a division of the votes. So you're going to know who is who. That was wonderful. I am saying again, Grenadians, home and abroad, just look at these people. Just look at them. The implications from what took place today, their votes and the position that they took, that should be, something that should send shockwaves in the diaspora and in Grenada when it comes to, gun violence and fighting crime. It should send shockwaves. Come on. This is concerning, and I'm happy that Grenadians are seeing through them. Seeing through them. And people start thinking now, retrospecting, looking back, and say, nah, boy, I wonder if certain elements didn't have a hand in this and a hand in that and a hand in this and a hand in that. People are wondering, thinking aloud. Because this place is our home, And I open the program every morning from 8 a.m. to 9, saying Grenada is our home. And we must work together to transform it, to build it, and to make it better, not just for this generation, but for the next generation and the next generation. And I always say, I follow so many podcasts and talk shows and so on. But the opposition forces on their programs, they come across as unpatriotic. They come across as though they hate everything good that happens for Grenada. They come across as though, they just want to hear the bad news. It's like all they love is horror movies. So if they pass in somewhere and there is some romantic movie showing, they get upset. They want to mash up the TV. All they like is blood, bad movies, bad stories. If they see a little cartoon, they're getting mad. And that is what we are experiencing. The level of hate, the level of bitterness, the level of anger among these people. It is overflowing and causing people to say, but what all you miss so? You all been there so long. What you really miss? Huh? All those years you've been there, you still, what you miss? That you're hungry for it so, you're desperate for it so, that you don't care if Grenada's name is tarnished. If Grenada is flat on its face, you don't care. You just want power and you want it, cost it what it may. I think it's time for us to reflect. See what happened today? If you didn't get a chance to view that sitting today, it's on GIS page. It's all over the place. Go check it out and take a listen. Take a listen. Folks, I want to wish you all the best. Have a wonderful night. I'll be back with you tomorrow, God's willing, starting from 8 in the a.m. until 9. And then during the night time again, you have to continue the journey. Take good care and bye